I'm Kevin Jacobsen of Gold Derby here with Tyler James Williams, who
How you
plays
doing?
Gregory on the great new ABC comedy Abbott Elementary. And I just want to start with the fan response and the critic response to this
hmm
show and just how universally positive it's been, which we don't really see much anymore from broadcast comedy, especially. How different does this feel to other shows or films that you've done in the past?
it feels really different. I mean, I think that it has to. Never do you have, critics liking something and also the internet, which hates everything, liking something
True.
at the same time. So it's been really nice because, we've been trying to make a really positive project. I mean, I think we went through an era where we had a lot of really dark things. And I think we, felt a need to make people feel good and laugh and have something that they communally talk about that doesn't polarize them. You know what I mean? And it's interesting that this show has kind of become that. But it does feel good. It feels nice to see positive energy flowing to the show and away from the show as well.
Definitely. I do think people are responding to that. And one of the interesting things about seeing this show emerge is that it's rare to see a show really just arrive so fully formed and
Mhm.
like the cast is all kind of working in tandem so well together just already in this first season, because sometimes with even with comedy especially it,
Right.
it takes a while to find the rhythms and
hmm
things like that. Can you sort of take us back to those first few days on set with just trying to find your character and find the rhythms of the show and just what that environment was like in the beginning?
It was really interesting because we shot the pilot in March of 2021. Before vaccines had even really become widely accessible. So the usual things you would do to start a show, we didn't do. We didn't have a cast table read together. We didn't get a chance to spend a bunch of time together to really gel. We had to kind of be quarantined to our own rooms in case somebody had something. But what was really interesting is I think everybody understood their role so well that when we did land together, it just gelled really well. I mean, I had known Quinta for a few years prior because we'd worked together on the Black Lady sketch show. And Cheryl Lee Ralph, I had known because she had done a show with my baby brother for about 4 years. So I just known her from around. But when we shot the pilot, there was something that just clicked. Everyone just fell in. And I looked at Cheryl and I was like, this feels different, right? And she was like, it really does. And then I think when we got to the season, we block shot the first 4 episodes. Um, and I think that was a great way for us to kind of really get into a rhythm. By the time we hit episode 5, we were on a roll. And that was what was crazy is watching the audience watch the first few. And I was like, we're still gelling here. We're still, getting it together. By the time we hit episode 5, 6, 7, and 8, we feel like a fully formed show. And it's a blessing that that happens so quickly because it doesn't for a lot of shows.
Yeah. Well, speaking to Quinta, I mean, I would encourage if anyone who hasn't seen that sketch, the Romeo and Juliet parody
Uh,
that the two of you did,
yes.
please watch that, especially for Janine and Gregory shippers out there. Just
Right, right. If you need to get that quick fix, go watch that.
exactly, exactly. But working with her, what does she provide, just like as a fellow creative person? And
hmm
I guess also, how quickly were you able to develop that instant connection with her that Janine and Gregory have?
Um, she provides a lot. One, she knows how to speak our language. I think a lot of times showrunners, they're such a good job at speaking the language of the writers' room, and then they talk to the actors, and it feels disconnected. I mean, I was really just, to tell you the truth, I was on the phone with her for 3 hours last night, just kind of talking about life and all of the things that are happening in our world and our sphere right now, what's coming up for season 2. And so our conversations are really extensive. And I know that she does that, not just with me because we have previous history, but with the majority of the cast. And that's what I think, makes our creative atmosphere work so well. Is that there's a lot of free flow dialogue at all times. As she's thinking about something, she's bringing it up to us. There's stuff that like they literally just broke in the writers' room yesterday for Gregory for season 2, and then she gets on the phone with me that night of like, here's some things that we just figured out. So it's a really symbiotic relationship, and I think what makes it work really well is the fact that she, wants to do this the right way. I think she wants to have people who are happy and create a great workplace environment, and understands that there is no value in withholding. There is no merit in, keeping things far away, as actors, as writers, and as a creator. And I think that's something that, as a creative, from one creative to another, is very valuable. This ability to not really we have a obvious set hierarchy based on just who runs the show, but it doesn't feel that way in the creative process.
Yeah, it reminds me of when some actors talk about like actors turned directors. That feels like you could kind of speak the same language. So
exactly. Yeah.
But speaking of the actors, working with Janelle James, I mean, who plays, the principal, who's
Yes.
a little too forward with Gregory. Just the
Right.
way that you register, just like how uncomfortable you are when she starts to get, a little too Ava.
Yes.
I mean, it's palpable, and I feel like there's such a different energy there when she's involved in a scene.
Right.
Can you just talk about what those scenes are like to film with her?
Janelle James she's doing a job on our show that I think a lot of people have to understand is the peak of our essential comedy. She's driving the show at times, the energy. She's like a drummer. We feel it, and I now know that the audience feels it. When she walks into a room, your heart picks up because you're like, I don't know what's about to happen, but something's about to happen. And that's what makes her an incredible actor and, incredible comedian as well. Shooting those scenes, man, people ask me, how am I getting these reactions out? And I'm like, do you not see what she's doing? I'm like, she does something, I naturally react. That's how it works. So she's essential to us, you know what I mean? She's essential to the way this show works, and she's playing a really tough role and position. And I hope that, people don't miss the genius of what she's doing for the performance.
Definitely. Yeah. And obviously there's this whole other element of you having to work with this big group of kids, and,
right.
He's trying to get their respect, but he doesn't always get it.
Right.
And I mean, just working with kids, I would imagine it's always kind of unpredictable. I'm just curious if you have any stories from behind the scenes that just stick out as like one particularly memorable day with the kids.
You're absolutely right. Working with kids is very unpredictable. What's interesting for me, though, is having been a child actor as well, I can see their minds working and trying to grasp and understand what we're doing. I think our biggest kid episode lift was the finale, where we took them all on a field trip, and it was us in, at this botanical gardens out here in LA with a bunch of kids, and it felt that way. We were keeping track of our classes and also making sure that they stayed focused on the task at hand. For me, the stories that I love are, one, they for some reason can't really differentiate between the characters and the actors. So my class will still call me Mr. Gregory. Quinta's class will call her Miss Janine. And they'll be asking us questions about what we're doing in the midst of it. So we're having to still play teacher, but now it's like acting teacher. Of like, so why are we doing this again? I thought we got that already. It's like, well, we need to get it from a different angle. And okay, well, why can I yell now, but I can't yell here? Well, it's to get clean dialogue. We're still being teachers actively while we're out there. And I think that's one that keeps us, dropped into the show, but also there's something really creatively rewarding about that, about actively passing on the information of today to the next generation.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Like, that's almost aiding in your own performance there.
It really is. Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously, one of the keys to this kind of mockumentary show is just being able to look at the camera and provide those great reaction shots. How much of an adjustment was that in like actually being able to acknowledge the camera, and also knowing how someone like Gregory would behave around, always having eyes on him?
It was something that it took me a while when I was prepping the pilot to fully wrap my head around, because the number one thing we're taught is to never look directly in the camera. Until I was working on it, and I had to understand that in this show, the camera are cast members. They're in this world, there are other people behind the camera who are shooting this. So once I understood them as being individual characters, then it became a lot easier for me. So when I'm throwing a look to a camera, and I'm literally throwing a look to Jeremiah, our camera operator, as if he is a character in this show. And that shifted the thing for me, and it's why all of our entire camera department, I told them, has to come back. It's like, you kind of can't not come back. Your cast members in my head at this point. I have very particular opinions that I can throw to each of them based on conversations we've each had. So once I got that, it became really easy and specific. I'm just throwing looks to another character in the show.
Well, just from looking at the fan response, I feel like I'm already seeing a lot of great Gregory reaction shots, but you also have some great, one-liners. I mean, the episode where we dig into some of his eating habits is definitely a highlight, talking about how you love a boiled chicken sandwich and how you don't like pie because fruit shouldn't be hot.
Right.
And it's just fun to see those moments where we get to learn more about him and just all his little idiosyncrasies. Do you have like a favorite line already, or just a character trait that you felt like, maybe if you could sum up Gregory, that would be something that you would point to as like, this is what he's all about?
Ooh, wow. That's a really good question that I haven't gotten yet. We've gotten a lot of questions on this kind of press run. For me, it is his eating habits. It really is. People have one thing they haven't picked up on is whenever Gregory is eating something throughout a scene, it's usually this one container of super dry pita chips with nothing on them. And for some reason now, even when I smell them, I begin to drop in the character because it's so consistently bland. And there's something about it that just rests me right into him. I love how not adventurous he is and how okay he is with that. And I like these quirks and characters that aren't these huge overarching like existential crises. He just doesn't like food, which is just objectively kind of funny. And that's I like those. I like that about him. I like his inability to really show emotion and him trying to figure that out and crack that. Even in that dancing episode of his body's moving but his face is not. It's just like those are the aspects of Gregory that I really love.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, moving over to maybe some existential questions with Gregory. One of the more interesting arcs of the season is just seeing this guy who really thought he wanted to be the principal of this school, and maybe some part of him still thinks that, but it was denied to him, and he took on this substitute teaching role, which he assumed would be temporary, but obviously he's really taken to it, and we see him eventually taking this permanent position in the school. And I was curious if like you yourself have ever been in that situation, maybe as an actor or just like in your life, where you really wanted something and you were just like almost narrow-minded in it, and it just didn't happen, but then you found this alternate path and maybe you realized that maybe it was sort of meant to work out this way.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think the beginning of my career, it kind of shot off with a bang of like leading a show that was really successful. And, I think there was this expectation that that's something I would continue to do. And I think what I found, and, hopefully Gregory ends up finding, is it's not the position, it's the journey. And that is, I found so much more fulfillment in doing the work. Recently I talked to somebody else of like, how I'm so much happier as a supporting actor than I ever was as a lead. And it's I know people hear that and they're like, they can't wrap their head around it. And I'm like, I'm serious. Like I can do it today if I wanted to. There's offers that come in for it all the time, but there's something about watching somebody else's vision come to fruition as I get a chance to, just get really specific about the minutia of this character and not having to carry the weight of it, that I found really fulfilling. And I think that that's something that, Gregory assumed that to be successful in his own head, he had to be a principal, but is finding that success to him is being on the ground with these kids day by day, watching their tiny progresses. And supporting their journey. So yeah, in that way, it really does line up for me.
Wow. Well, sort of speaking again to maybe your history, I wanted to
Hmm.
touch on the episode where we meet Gregory's father,
Hmm.
played by Orlando Jones. Obviously, a brilliant bit of casting there, and the two of you have a past, not only just working together on Everybody Hates Chris, but
Hmm.
specifically in that show, him
Right.
playing a substitute teacher. I mean,
Right.
it's kind of beautiful there. But
Right.
uh, first of all, what was your reaction when you just found out that he was going to play your father? And then also, I mean, I know you don't physically share scenes together, it's through FaceTime, but
Hmm.
can you describe just working on that with him? Assuming you did it together. I don't know if that was like movie magic.
Well, one figured it out. I suggested it, and that's how that happened.
There you go.
Quinta had come to me and was like, "Hey, we're thinking about casting. We wrote a dad character, and we're thinking about casting him. Do you have anybody that you think would work?" And the first person came to mind, I was like, "It's Orlando." I was like, "I'm pretty sure he'll do it." It's like, and I'm pretty sure he'll be down. And then 2 days later, she came back and was like, "So we got Orlando, and it's going to be great." And I was like, "See, it works
Uh,
out." I've always wanted to work with him again. It's crazy. I didn't even put the substitute teacher connection thing together until much later, until after we shot it. And it was, again, still during COVID. So I think we were in the midst of one of the variant spikes. So bringing him out wasn't really an option. So from his home on the East Coast, he FaceTimed and we shot it like that. We shot it through FaceTime live. And it was so good to catch up with him and see that he's good, and to have, a relationship, good working relationship almost 20 years later. And that's, for me, what I want to do at this point in my career is I want to work with people who I loved working with, and friends, and people who I think are really talented and good people all the way around. So I was really happy to be able to, throw his name out there, and Quinta responded well to it. And it became this moment that everyone got to freak out for about 30 seconds.
yeah.
But we're going to have some payoffs, coming later down the road, from what I understand. And that to me is ideal. If I get the chance to work with friends and they're good people and we can actually make some good stuff that happen to do really well, I'm 100% happy.
Yeah. Well, just as we wrap up here,
Mhm.
we've talked about working with Quinta and Janelle, but I'm curious if you have another actor in the cast that maybe you're hoping to share some more storylines with coming up in season two.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing a really good job of mix and matching. You know what I mean? Of
Yeah.
putting people together. For me, Chris Perfetti, Jake. One, I'm a fan. I'm such a fan of his work and how good he is. I usually wouldn't watch a show that I'm in, because it's kind of weird for me, because I start critiquing my own work and then I'll change my performance throughout seasons and all that. But I watch this show because I'm a fan of the people in it, and one being Chris Perfetti. I just love the work that he does, and I love watching him. So I kind of want to have more scenes with him for very like voyeuristic reasons, not necessarily like for the characters. I just want to watch him work more. But I would like to see more Gregory and Finava. I need to get them stuck somewhere. I was telling somebody, I was like, they need to get stuck. Like, there needs to be like a blizzard or something, and they get stuck in a
Mm.
location, and we really see them have to have a conversation about what is sexual harassment, probably at this school. Um, that's one I would love to see. But as many times we can mix and match, I'm really happy with it. I love all the Gregory stuff with Mr. Johnson as well. That's something that, like, they're the two, men in this school, the Black men in this school who can connect in a different way. So yeah, I mean, I want to see as much of this as possible. Chris Perfetti for just acting fan reasons. Able because, let's just put them in a room and see what happens. And Mr. Johnson because they have a very unique relationship.
Yes. And personally speaking, you and Shirley Ralph, I think, are also fantastic together.
I mean,
I mean,
Cheryl, I'm
yeah.
just happy to be in her presence.
Uh-huh.
She's just so queenly. But I think that is also a really great dynamic. She can bring
Yeah.
this thing to Gregory of, like, when he's insecure about things, she's like, you don't have time for that. We got to get this together. These are kids, you have to teach them. So there is that, like, I always, when they have scenes together, I feel like Gregory's going to learn something. He's going to get a nugget of wisdom that he's going to need down the road. So yeah, I mean, we have a cast of heavy hitters, man,
Yeah,
that each character works well together. So stick me with anybody in this cast. I'm having fun.
definitely. Well, for those of you watching, subscribe for more interviews and go to goldderby.com to make your Emmy predictions. Tyler, thanks so much for talking with me today.
Thank you for having me.